Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Not taking much time, we'll start the next session. Once again, the trajectory of adoption of green procurement has been very different in private and public sector, as well as different economics around the world. However, we can learn a lot from each other. In current session, we have brought together experts from public and private sectors, in addition to MBDs and academia, to discuss this important topic of driving sustainable procurement. The panel discussion will be moderated by Dr. Sandeep Nemlekar, Professor, Chetana's Institute of Management and Research. A brief introduction to Sir. A senior management professional, Mr. Nemlekar is a graduate in engineering and doctorate of philosophy in supply chain management. He is a life fellow member of Indian Institute of Material Management and fellow of the Institute of Engineers India. As a speaker, he has conducted around 4,850 hours of session at a management forums, conference, and association for entrepreneurs and professionals and institutes for post graduation in management. He has worked for the leading groups of Indian industries like Tata, Aditya Birla, Jindal, etc., as well as he has worked for multinational group. In most of these organizations, he has played leadership role in supply chain management. In such role, he has guided team managing the supply chain function for multi products, multi process, and multi location scenarios during entire life cycle of the product or services. Further, as a managing trustee, he runs Deep Acharan Charitable Trust. Over to you, sir, to begin the session.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Payal, for the warm introduction and the kind words. Let me now introduce our esteemed panelists, starting with Liesbeth Casier. Liesbeth is lead public procurement and sustainable infrastructure policy and coordinator of the NBI Global Resource Center with IISD's Economic Law and Policy Program. Liesbeth also worked extensively with European Commission, Inter-American Development Bank, the World Bank, and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, that is OECD, on policy frameworks and business case for sustainable infrastructure. Liesbeth has an academic background in political science and law. Liesbeth, welcome on the panel. Our next panelist is Barbara Ziolkowska. She works as a senior procurement specialist at World Bank Office, Kyiv, Ukraine. She oversees procurement and contracting under World Bank finance projects in Ukraine and Poland worth over $3 billion in various sectors such as energy, water, transport, health, railway, and agriculture. She led technical assistance project on green public procurement GPP in Ukraine, supporting the Ministry of Economic in development of GPP implementation methodology. In Poland, she co-leads an advisory services project on the state purchasing strategy, focusing on the professionalism of procurement professionals, GPP, and SMEs. Barbara, welcome on the panel. Next panelist, Piyush Bharatiya, is a veteran leader in procurement. Piyush has vast experience in managing complex procurement domains, deeper insights on managing sustainable procurement. Piyush currently leads Schneider India procurement based out of India. Piyush, welcome on the panel. Next panelist, Rajesh Bhogavali. is a seasoned supply chain professional over 25 years of extensive experience in end-to-end supply chain management in areas such as materials management, demand and supply management, strategic purchase, production, quality assurance, warehousing, and logistics. Rajesh specializes in formulating demand planning strategies, production planning, inventory monitoring models for complex supply chain situations, and strategic procurement. Currently associated with EPL Limited, formerly known as SL Power Pack Limited, as Senior Vice President Supply Chain Global. Rajesh, welcome on the panel. This just I was looking at the newspapers last week, and there was some reporting from Unilever CEO Alan Joe. He was talking about that estimated disruption caused by rising temperatures will cost 1.3 trillion US dollars by 2026 and likely results in 80 million jobs. That's what he was talking about. Cost of inaction against climate change higher than cost of action. And when we talk about sustainable procurement, what comes to our mind is a process whereby organizations meet their needs for goods, services, and works and utilities in a way that achieves value for money on life cycle basis while addressing equity principles for sustainable development, therefore benefiting societies and the environment across time and geography. And as well, even in the previous session, I was hearing to the triple bottom line is an accounting framework with three parts which comes into play, that is social, economic, environmental, or ecological. Though sustainable procurement is a vast area, looking at the time constraints and maybe some of the aspects have already been talked about, we are going to focus this particular panel discussion on green procurement. And therefore, I will just seek the opening remarks by the panelists. First, Liesbeth, it's your turn.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, and thanks so much to the organizers for having me here. It's a privilege to be part of this dialogue, and I could listen in to the last bits of the last session where I heard already very encouraging examples and ways moving forward with sustainable and green public procurement. So I'll definitely keep it short for opening remarks. But my main message really here is that today we cannot afford to not look into and implement green and sustainable public procurement, exactly because of the costs of inaction that you just mentioned, Sandeep. They're incredibly high, and they're becoming higher with the day. We see the impacts of climate change all around us, and not incorporating the risk of climate change into, in particular, the procurement of infrastructure, we will see the costs becoming higher day by day. So we really have to embed that looking at climate risk into our infrastructure planning, procurement, and financing pieces. At the same time, there is also an enormous need for infrastructure, energy infrastructure, transport infrastructure, affordable housing, healthcare facilities are needed, education infrastructure. So on and off, there's many estimates that are circulating, but we see an infrastructure gap of about 4.29 trillion US dollar annually around the globe. Many of the new infrastructure needs to be built. A lot of the old infrastructure needs to be made climate proof. At the same time, we know the infrastructure sector is responsible for almost more than 70% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And a lot of that can be traced back to various types of infrastructure. And so we sit with that challenge on how we make that happen. How do we actually deliver on the infrastructure needs, not making climate change worse, and at the same time also looking into maximizing social benefits that come from infrastructure development. And that is really why we need to look at making sure our public procurement processes are steered towards delivering sustainable infrastructure. Not only taking into account the green aspects, which I know is the focus of our discussion here, but also incorporating the social benefits that infrastructure delivers and that are often not brought back to the procurement agencies that initiate the infrastructure procurements, but that are certainly important for governments to consider. If we invest in sustainable infrastructure, we are saving costs elsewhere. And it is incredibly important to be able to meet citizens' needs and to be able to keep procuring based on a value for money principle. Thank you.
Barbara, your opening remarks, please.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody, and greetings from Poland. I work for the World Bank office in Ukraine, but due to the war, we are now working outside of Ukraine, and I am now temporarily based in my home country, Poland. Actually, last week we had a big public procurement conference in Albania for our region, Europe and Central Asia, where we gathered all government public procurement officials, and it was so clear that all countries in our region advance on green public procurement agenda, on sustainable public procurement agenda, and it is a clear priority for all of them. At the same time, they are at different stages of advancement, and some countries are at the initial stage. Some of them are more advanced, like Poland, which is an EU member country, and have aligned all the public procurement law with European Union directives, which clearly puts sustainable public procurement as a strategic public procurement function, including clear professionalization agenda for public procurement officials, which is called Procure Comp EU competency framework, which includes, among other 30 different competencies, sustainable public procurement as a separate competency. So it is clearly a priority going forward for all public procurement professionals. And I'm very happy to be on this panel and share some country experiences, how the World Bank supported government of Ukraine and also Polish government in further advancement of green public procurement. Thank you very much.
Piyush, your opening comments.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me on this panel. It's my real privilege to share some thoughts on sustainability topic today. I represent Schneider Electric as Vice President for Procurement in India. I think, Sandeep, you talked about sustainability, and I would like to define sustainability. I think sustainability can be clearly defined as fulfilling the needs of current generations, without compromising needs of future generations. And we talked about three elements, which is economic growth, environmental care, and social well-being. So these three are, I would say, important pillars, which against which the sustainability can be divided and multiple actions can be, worked upon. And you also talked, Sandeep, about the temperature rise. So there are various studies which are done according to various reports done by UN. It is anticipated that global warming will most likely to impact, 1.5 degree in near future. And you can really imagine impact of such temperature increases, can be manifold and disastrous, like, melting of glaciers or disappearance of animals and plant species, forest fires, droughts, and many of them actually currently we are witnessing. So this topic for sure is of utmost importance. And, many companies have pledged during various summits and meetings. So do Schneider. I would be very happy to share some of the initiatives what we are doing in this domain. But I'm really happy to be part of this panel and looking forward for very good discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Piyush. Rajesh, your opening comments.
Yeah, thank you, Sandeep. Thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of this procurement panel discussion. I'm really honored to share our experiences in terms of how we in private enterprises are making a journey towards procurement or sustainable procurement. Like what rightly pointed out earlier, that this is really a good forum where the public procurement professionals and the private procurement professionals, how we can come together to exchange ideas of how we are seeing our markets or how we are seeing our areas, and how we as procurement professionals being in the driver's seat for any organization, be it public or private, we are one of the key enablers for driving this sustainable agenda, right? As what you have, one point what I want to make here is that as what you have rightly said, the comments from Alan Yo in regards to the cost of inaction compared to the cost of taking actions. One thing what we can see clearly nowadays is that there is a lot of awareness which is growing across people, not only in public space but also in private space. Uh, Being a procurement professionals, I can witness the way things are changing across the globe in terms of how everyone is taking seriously the sustainable initiatives, right? I'll be honest with you, a few years back, all this sustainable talk was really a talk. Uh, Everyone used to speak at big forums and conferences. Honestly, when we go back and want to do business with a lot of the private industries, the people in the procurement will always used to say, "Oh, that is good, but tell me how is it going to benefit me? Whether I get any cost reductions or those kind of discussions used to take place." And unfortunately, we could never used to go ahead in that. But one visible change, what we are seeing in the last few years, is that yes, everyone is becoming very serious. Probably because number one, all the heads of global companies have taken a pledge on sustainability, be it in reduction of energy consumption, be it in achieving carbon neutrality, be it in reducing plastic waste or plastic consumption. So I think those top statements are now slowly being coming down at an operating level, and we can see more serious discussions happening on how together we, along with the customer and the vendor, together we can make the world a better place to live. Unlike in the past, it was your agenda, it was my agenda, but now at least we see a lot of collaboration happening with our customers, and this is really a good sign, which we see will help the world going ahead. But yes, of course, there are also certain challenges, like how do you define sustainability? And there is no clear answer like this is the way to go in sustainability, right? Uh, there is a lot of thought process, evolution, a lot of debate happening, which is the right way to grow in sustainability. And I can share some areas, like be in the plastic industry or in the packaging industry. We also see different rules of sustainability coming from different countries, different companies. So I think this is still a very nascent area. Everyone is trying to figure out what is the best way to achieve this sustainability. And I'm sure going ahead, this thing will catch up, and then there will be some firm rules of the game, or there will be some firm path where everyone can see, okay, this is the way in which we need to achieve the sustainability. I think with this opening remark, I will thank everyone for giving me an opportunity to discuss on this.
Thank you, Rajesh. Policies, principles, and pledge are the good prerequisites. But as we go ahead, Liesbeth, can you please share some examples of the work done by you for successful implementation of green public procurement? Liesbeth.
Thank you. Yeah, there's actually plenty of examples, I think, across the world that we have seen in the past. I've been working in this space about 8 years now, and I think I would fully agree with what Rajesh just mentioned before, that this space has really moved from talking about should we really do this to how are we going to do this, and how are we going to make it happen. And so I just went to I'm just going to mention a few examples, but fully aware that there are many more. early in my work at IISD, I worked quite a bit with Latin American countries on using procurement as a strategic tool for government implementations plans. Very interesting work done in Paraguay, where policies to combat rural poverty were very much connected to empowering family agriculture. And so the government put in place a program to empower family farmers through public procurement processes and ensuring that they could actually participate in public bids. And some of the elements that were really important there is that the government put quite a lot of effort in making clear connections between the policies that were there on combating rural poverty and the role of family agriculture, then moved on to capacity building, but not only of public procurers in cities and regions, but also of the suppliers, of the farmers groups, and actually working with them to increase an understanding of what it means to contract with government. And so that element of building capacity, not only in the side of public procurers, but also suppliers, I think is really key in making that change towards strategic public procurement. So that's one example. We've seen other examples in that region where procurement was used to make sure that the more marginalized groups in society were economically empowered through government contracts. Lots of contracting with SMEs in the Dominican Republic, in Chile. And the way that was done in the procurement process was also to put clear performance indicators in place on making sure that those groups were actually incorporated in the procurement process. So that's one of the Latin American region. At the same time, we've done a lot of work at IISD on green public procurement in Bhutan, for example, where we worked quite a bit on the technical aspects of things, of different goods and services, and developing technical specifications on what it means to procure particular sets of goods and services. And that, I think, leads us to a discussion that we need to have on what do we mean when we say sustainable. And what's really important is that we need to leave sufficient discretion to countries to be able to define that based on the priorities and the needs that they have, and also based on the available knowledge and the best available technologies to actually reduce environmental footprints of goods and services. And it's very much connected to what the market is able to deliver today and what the market will be able to deliver tomorrow. So we had lots of those conversations in the context of green procurement in Bhutan as well. And the last example, or perhaps two that I'll quickly put on the table here, is that there's a lot of work done around what we call performance-based procurement in South Africa, where again, there was a lot of conversation, a lot of thought leadership coming from including minority groups through performance-based procurement into the procurement of a lot of services for buildings, cleaning services, and making sure that those groups were represented and empowered. And what's especially important with those procurements is that we monitor the impact very well, and that the evidence that comes out of those procurements are also widely shared and actually communicated to the wider public. And the last example, I think, particularly in the area of green public procurement, comes, I think, from the European Union at large. Many, as Barbara has been mentioning before, the EU directive is a good instrument for many countries to scale up the use of green procurement. But there have also been a wealth of tools developed in European countries, one of which we're currently working with is something called the Co2 Performance Ladder. This is an instrument that was developed in the Netherlands, has been used in Belgium, and is now being piloted outside of those two countries to incentivize bidders to reduce their CO2 footprint in their supply chain, and they are being ranked then at different levels, literally of a CO2 ladder. And it's not only a carbon management tool for suppliers, it is also a procurement tool for procurement agencies. And what the tool allows them to do is basically shed light and provide some transparency on how far suppliers are in their CO2 management. And they can basically award, based on a points-based system, through the award procedure, they can award an advantage to the suppliers that are higher ranked on the ladder. So again, there's a wealth of examples out there, but I just wanted to mention these few ones. But happy to take questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Liesbeth, for the example, probably covering various parts of this world. Coming to Barbara, my next question is, what are the World Bank's policies for promoting green public procurement in its client countries? Barbara.
Thank you very much. I could echo Liesbeth Dutch and refer to the Dutch experience, because even for other EU member states, the Netherlands seems to be indeed the most advanced in use of various sophisticated tools to green infrastructure projects, and they have a special agency that for past 15 years have been working on greening of big infrastructure projects. So from the World Bank side, we are one of the biggest, largest developmental banks to finance climate-related operations, and also through our environmental and social safeguards framework, we ensure that environmental risks are properly managed in our investment project financing. So for every project that we finance in any client country, we require to prepare environmental management plans. So for example, in Poland, we finance flood protection projects along two big rivers, and as part of the environmental management plan, we make sure that the species are protected, that whenever there is a need to cut any tree, there is always a compensatory tree planting in place, that is, protected species are monitored and protected, and that if there is any structure built on the river, there are always in place fish passes for fish to safely pass. So with that, it's a global standard to be followed. And in addition, through our procurement framework, that was a new one developed in 2016, we strongly promote the use of sustainability criteria, including greening. Although we still see that in a lot of developing countries, there is a need for further uptake and further professionalization efforts done to explain benefits of greening, and also remove this perception that green procurement is more costly, because in the past we have been successfully using life cycle costing in our procurement, and also other non-price criteria. Going forward, we will underline importance of use of rated criteria and we expect all basically tenders that where the World Bank is financing to use these rated criteria, and focus on sustainable public procurement, including on stronger contract management aspects and very strong market engagement. As part of each project preparation, we request all our client countries to prepare procurement strategies. These procurement strategies have to have a discussion whether there is any potential to use sustainable public procurement practices. So we require all client countries to have this discussion very early, before even actual tender happens, as part of the procurement strategy preparation. It also contains a separate section on market engagement. So we do underline importance of market engagement before any tender is put in place to verify whether there is any uptake and possibility to green some tenders. And we do hope that going forward, we will see more and more green tenders, including separate greening criteria in our World Bank finance projects. At the same time, we also support client countries in their public procurement reform agendas. And last year, we concluded a global desk review of all green public procurement policies and country reform work. It was a global work that was finalized with drafting a global pillars framework for implementation of green policies in any countries. These pillars we have piloted in Ukraine, and we will also pilot them in Poland. Basically, the pillars go through all the cycle of the procurement process, starting from the business need, enabling framework, market engagement, the need for professionalization, implementation tools, as well as monitoring, because we see that in terms of green public procurement, monitoring is still very weak in various countries, and it has to be strengthened. And since all the countries nowadays digitize their e-government procurement system, there is a big room to include additional green indicators and better monitor. So I'll stop here, and later on we'll be able to share some specific country examples. Many thanks.
Thank you, Barbara. Now let's move from public sector to the private sector, and let's move from infrastructure to all sort of procurements, right? So my question now to Piyush, what are the key initiatives Schneider supporting sustainability in a big way as a leading company in this type? Piyush.
Okay, so Schneider is actually an energy management company, and our purpose is to empower all to make most of our energy and resources, bringing progress and sustainability for all. So you would have seen Schneider being very high in, maybe leading company, taking pledges, and making our commitment to internal and external stakeholders. Uh, we are in energy management business, so sustainability is at our core, and it becomes extremely important. So as a Schneider Electric, we have taken 6 long-term commitments as a company, based on climate, resources, trust, equal opportunities, future generations, and local commitments. So these commitments, have been taken in line with the UN's mission of reducing 1.5 degree. And there are 12 targets which are taken internally. One is definitely to use green revenues. So I think our Schneider expect to, by 2025, our green revenues to go up to 80%. We are doing a lot of carbon saving initiatives in our plant. So we are committing 800 million tons of CO2 emissions to our customer by 2025. We are also working with our supplier partners for reducing the carbon emission. Also, our primary and secondary packaging is free from single-use plastic, and we are using more of a recycled cardboard. We are also working, with increasing gender diversity for hiring frontline managers and leaderships. Also, providing access to energy to 50 million people across the world, and create opportunities for next generation. Under access to energy program, we are also developing a lot of training and competency building with underprivileged people. So this is at a company level as a Schneider as an enterprise. At a procurement level, we have multiple initiatives, I would say, to support the global initiative from Schneider. One of the biggest initiative in environment domain is Zero Carbon Project. And this is a project which we are working with our supply partners. So globally, Schneider has identified, I would say, 1,000 suppliers to work with this program. And in this program, we are working with suppliers to declare their current carbon footprint, and then over a systematic approach of 4 years, reduce the carbon footprint to 50% by year 2025. So this is quite a big project and quite a lot commitment from suppliers on this. Second is, I think we are also working a lot on the circular economy. So, use of green material in our design. So current, our products have very less green content, and our idea is to use 50% of our product with the green certification to our customers. So a lot of initiatives in terms of right from design stage, we are working with our engineering to see that our products have green materials. On the circularity, we are also working with sustainable packing. So we have almost more than 160 plants across globe and 28 plants in India. So idea is to use a recycled cardboard and no waste of corrugation. All the plants currently are executing the project of returnable packaging and avoid single use of plastic. We are also working with our supply partners on circular economy. So, the scrap which is generated by our suppliers, for copper scrap or plastic scrap. So we are working with our supply partners to see how do we recycle this with original manufacture of raw material so that there is a circular economy ensured. Then, apart from that, there is a continuous adherence and compliance to regulations. Of course, the REACH, ROCH compliant, conflict mineral materials. So that is by default, I think, compliant. If we are exporting to Europe, US, I think these are mandatory requirements which companies, for sure following. One of the new initiative, I think, towards, I would say, more on social perimeter, we are working as a decent work. So, I'm sure every company follows law of land and minimum wages are followed. But, Schneider has taken a unique project of decent work in which we are trying to work with our strategic suppliers. So 100% of the strategic suppliers would be following decent work practices by 2025. So this is a project recently launched, and we continue to work on that project. Apart from that, there are a lot of projects on social excellence and driving things in a right way. And I would probably, give some examples how we are actually doing it. So we, from procurement, we had our supplier day in which we call our strategic supply partners for giving the messages. So sustainability definitely was a key topic. And when we thought that we are calling our 160 partners and giving them message on sustainability, and we are doing this event face to face, so there is huge carbon emission. So right from international travels of people to domestic travel to people to the consumption of food, what they are doing, entire thing was calculated for carbon emission, and we realized that we are emitting almost 30 metric ton in one event, and this is sustainability event, so we really cannot do it. So either the choice was not to do it or make it carbon neutral. So we committed to make it carbon neutral with our supplier partners. We have planted more than 4,500 trees in 1 week's time. Okay, that was, I would say, quite a great work and Herculean task. Also, many initiatives in terms of food choices, choice of hotel, reduction of temperature of AC, and I mean I would say many tactical measures were taken. So we just don't say it, we want to do it and we are doing it. So I think sustainability has become part of our core. I can see very clearly, and I agree with what Rajesh was saying earlier. People were talking. Now I can see, personally as a leading procurement professional in my company, everything and anything what we do, the first angle what comes is sustainability. So I think this is extremely important, and I'm sure in times to come it will gain more importance. That's pretty all from my side, Sandeep.
Thank you, Piyush. And now let's move from initiative to the challenges. And I'm coming to Rajesh. What are the main challenges faced by you in green procurement, especially as in the private sector? Because you will always have the pressure of profits, right? So
Yes,
please
yes.
guide us on
Yeah.
this.
Thank you, Sandeep. I think this journey of sustainable procurement is not easy, right? One, like what you rightly pointed out, there is a huge pressure on cost. Like, how do we ensure that we have a proper procurement in place, which is green, which is not increasing the cost, because we will not be able to pass on the cost to the customers, but still we need to, show to the world that we are doing green. So as part of this, Sandeep, what we have done is that one, we tried to source products and we worked a lot with our research teams on one, how do we, make sure that every product that what we are selling is really green, whether it is really recyclable or whether it can be reusable, right? I think, see, the products what we had initially in the past year, so is not completely recyclable. So we wanted to give a statement, and we want to give an offering to our customers saying that, yes, look at the products what we are offering. They are completely recyclable and reusable. I think this is a good statement, general statement, where everyone works on this, and we are also in this. But going into this journey, we suddenly realized that because of the increase in awareness of sustainability, there are only few resources across the globe which can make these kind of plastics really recyclable, reusable. And there is again a same challenge, like there is a huge demand for such a very small quantity of products or raw materials. The demand is really huge. So the first challenge what we face is that while we are working on increasing the awareness, sustainability, we are all working with the customers. I'm not able to supply to the levels what the customers want, simply because there is too much demand for a very few critical raw materials which will make these plastics into recyclable, reusable, right? And this is where what we have realized, and luckily we have been working with these vendors for the past 15, 20 years. And we are one of the first people to go to the industry saying that, look, we have products which are completely recyclable, reusable and all. And because of the strong association with these vendors, we are able to secure these critical raw materials and provide a uninterrupted way of giving supplies to our customers, whoever is wanting to move to the green products. The second challenge, of course, is again the same thing. In plastics, there are three ways you can make everything green, circular economy we call: reduce, reuse, recycle, right? Now, we embarked on a journey of reuse where we have incorporated, using the circular methodology, where the post-consumer recycles, right? All the plastics thrown away into the oceans, plastics thrown outside on the ground and all. So we are trying to incorporate, the plastic made out of the post-consumer thrown away plastics, convert it into granules and start using into our products. While this is a good idea, we have made good progress. Suddenly we realize that this strategy cannot be 100% right, because we also supply packaging material which go into the food industry, right? Food, oral care industry. So obviously you cannot use recycled plastic thrown away. We don't know, what kind of plastic that is. It can be even chemicals. It can be even pesticides where you are recycling, and you cannot use those plastics into the plastics used for food industry, right? So there are a lot of regulatory challenges where we suddenly realize that you cannot use anything and everything. So there has to be certain rules of how you are going to use and how much quantity you are going to use. And it was a Herculean task to find plastic producers who are using, who are having absolute control on what kind of input waste they can get. Ultimately, we could find some suppliers in the US who were recycling plastic using the milk bottles, like the big milk bottles which are used in the Western world, especially in Americas and Europe. So there are suppliers who collect only milk bottles or food grade bottles. There is a complete chain available where they bring those bottles, they convert it into granules, and then we can start using them into our packaging materials. Of course, we get certain no objection letters from the US FDA to ensure that this is not contaminating the plastic what we are using. But again, the irony here is that we import the material all the way from US to India. We manufacture in India, and again we export to Europe. Now, the question here is, going back to the earlier discussion, the amount of carbon footprint, Piyush was talking about a simple event where they talked about of so much of equivalent carbon dioxide quantity that you are producing. Now, is it really the right way of going into sustainability? Of course, this is quite debatable. That is what I'm saying. This area is wide open now. It is left to interpretation. It is also left to certain policies by the governments. But we also need to come a real way of what is really sustainable. I mean, while this is a good example, and of course, this we realize that the cost of the product has increased 4x compared to a normal virgin polymer what I'm using in my packaging. But still, yes, we made the efforts, we got it, we found some customers who are ready to pay for this, and we have a business case. But is it really sustainable in the business model itself is again a question mark. If you compare the carbon footprint used versus the recycling that you are trying to consume the plastic waste around the world, is again a question mark. But yes, I think these are some of the different challenges we in the industry are facing, and we cannot escape away saying that no, there are challenges. So we need to find ways and means. We discuss a lot with our customers, like these are the challenges we are looking at. How do you see we all can work together to ensuring that this is a completely, truly recyclable economy? And the other challenge we also see is that while there are policies in place, there are everything in place, we also had to ensure that this is going through the complete chain. So I think one area what we realize is that while people at the top level talk about this, we had to completely relook our procurement policy. What I'm talking is really being practiced inside the company or not. What is the kind of weightage we as a company are giving to vendors who are abiding by all these green procurement processes? How many vendors are actually forming part of the green procurement? So we started to develop metrics within the organization, saying that we have a target of ensuring that at least 80% of the vendors should have commitments or should have clear demonstrable actions which shows that we all are working towards sustainability, and we need to work only with those partners. Having said that, it is not easy, but yes, we have a plan in place. We are making good progress on that. We are working with the various stakeholders on how together we all can work and ensure that we work towards green procurement. Yes, the journey has just started. It's not easy, but yes, I think there is a good discussion. There is a good willingness to collaborate. That is the key word I would like to say. It is a journey which you cannot make by yourself. And we see very good signs of collaboration happening with customers, with vendors, with all the stakeholders. And this is also helping by certain policies at the government level. Like if I can share, European Union has a policy where if you are not using certain percentage of recycled plastics into your products, you are liable to be taxed. I think it's a good policy, but yes, it's not simple. Like what I said, you need to find the right products to use into your plastic so that it is making real meanings to what we are doing. There is this extended producers responsibility in India, which is again a good initiative. I think we have made a good progress on this EPR also in India, and we are seeing such policies coming up in countries like South America and China. Of course, we know when it comes for things in China, it is really a big task. But yes, we are all prepared for this, and I'm sure it is a journey which everyone is going to take through, even though it is difficult. But I think it is the need of the hour.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you so much for that detailing. Now, let's look at the challenges from the individual corporate to a broader level, and that's where probably Liesbeth, you can tell us what are the challenges and opportunities for scaling up GPP, and what are your thoughts on the way forward? Liesbeth, please.
Thank you so much. I think the question on challenges and opportunities comes together. So I'll focus on the opportunity side, or rather what we have seen, I think, across the globe, because a lot of these conversations are actually their country-specific challenges for sure, but across the globe there are what we call the 6 ingredients of sustainable and green public procurement, kind of 6 elements that always come back in success stories. And so those are the 6 I wanna quickly go through here today. One is the legal framework. A legal framework cannot be asking for the lowest price, but it has to embed best value for money across the life cycle of what we are buying. That's essential. The second point, is capacities and professionalization. We can't look at procurement agencies as being the back office administrative function, but they must be equipped with knowledge, but also skills to engage in a conversation on sustainability and on green public procurement. We can't have a conversation on sustainability just being a burden to procurement agencies, but we have to demonstrate that pursuing unsustainable procurement, that's what brings the risk and that's what brings the costs. And so procurement agencies need to have that professionalization to be able to tackle that. The third thing is knowledge on technical criteria on specific sectoral areas of public spending. It's very hard to just say what is green procurement overall. It depends on whether we are looking at plastics, whether we are looking at cement and steel, or whether we are looking at particular services that are being procured. So sectoral knowledge. The fourth, and that's extremely important, is around budgetary challenges. There is still a wide perception that sustainability and green costs more. And sometimes at the point of purchase, at the point of the capital investment, that is indeed the case. But if we take a life cycle approach, and even better, a total cost of ownership approach that looks into monetizing negative and positive externalities, environmental and social ones, and if we take that into account, some of those budgetary challenges could be tackled with. And for the remainders, we need to have open conversations with different stakeholders around the table. Where are cost savings taking place if we choose to procure sustainably? And how can we approach that in a much more holistic and systemic manner? The fifth one is mindset, culture, political will. A lot of the pushes for sustainable procurement are going to come from policy areas outside of the pure public procurement space. And it's important that we make the connection and that we see how procurement can help deliver some of those other policy challenges and development challenges that are being identified. And the sixth one, it's sharing best practices. It's actually what I think in part is happening here today, but it's extremely important. And many stakeholders who we've worked with always indicate that it's extremely useful to be able to be connected to municipalities, cities, other governments that have gone through similar challenges of implementing SPP, and to be able to talk through those experiences. So for the way forward, what I see and what I hope is that a lot of those challenges will be tackled in a way where stakeholders will collaborate to truly make this a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Liesbeth. Thank you for that those guidelines. Let me go to Barbara now, and let me ask her to share some examples of GPP supported by World Bank, and how important is stakeholder engagement, that is SPP for SPP, Sustainable Procurement Pledge. Barbara, it's your views, please.
Thank you very much. So, following up on the opportunities and challenges, I would like to. There is some echo. I don't know if you can hear the echo. So coming back to the topic, in Ukraine, we helped the government draft implementation methodology for GPP. They have the law in line with the European Union directives, so legal framework seemed to be fully in line with the use of non-price criteria and life cycle costing. However, there was no political will at the high governmental level. So as I mentioned, we ran through all the pillars of good practice pillars, and under the first pillar, making the business case, we realized that there is a need for stronger coordination among line ministries. So we brought together Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Economy in charge of public procurement, and we made them talk together and agree on the strategic focus for GPP in Ukraine. We engaged stakeholders group. There was another area which was missing is proactive stakeholder engagement, and we helped the government create this GPP consultative group that consisted with various representatives of academia, public procurement officials, private sector, and NGOs, and whoever want to become a GPP champion in Ukraine. Under the legal framework, we realized that while the law is fully in line with the EU requirements, there was no implementation guidance, and there was a fear of procuring entities to apply green criteria. They were fearing future audits and controlling bodies questioning why they were picking non-price criteria. So we developed like a legal interpretation, ensuring that on the basis of the current law, procuring entities are allowed to use non-price criteria to make sure that there is no fear vis-a-vis various auditing bodies in the country, because this feedback we received during our project. Third pillar, market engagement. We engage the market, and this is another challenge for Ukrainian procuring entities. They are not used to talk to the private sector openly, and we help them develop methodology how to engage the market when discussing potential greening products. And we identified 2 product categories for greening, which was catering services due to big farming opportunities, organic farming in Ukraine, and also construction of building and use of recycled materials. And in the view of future reconstruction, in Ukraine, we believe that this is a great potential for future reconstruction, use of recycled materials. So market engagement was one of the priority area which was new to the government and to procuring entities. But another pillar which we went through and evaluated is professionalization. So we saw that there was no training course on green public procurement. So as part of the project, we developed a curriculum and a course, online course, on green public procurement that had 4 modules, online course, free of charge, and we cooperated with the Kiev School of Economics, which is currently hosting this online course. The key topics is introduction to green public procurement, how to design green public policies, how to engage the market on green public procurement, and how to monitor. These modules take about 10 hours. There are certificates, and anybody interested can take the course, and Kiev School of Economics agreed to host it as part of their professional public procurement courses. So we contributed to the professionalization agenda, and thanks to this project, an implementation methodology was prepared for the government to lead further discussion on all these areas, including GPP monitoring, which was missing in the e-government procurement system. But now, with the help also of other donors, the e-government procurement system called Prozoro is being currently revised also to include some green criteria, green elements for better monitoring. So it is important, just to summarize, that each country make progress on each of these areas gradually as they fit, but it's important that there is a progress in each of these areas made. And in Poland, the World Bank is supporting the government in implementation of the National Purchasing Strategy. It's a new strategy recently approved by the Cabinet of Ministers. And they also, with the focus area on professionalization, green public procurement, and the better access of SMEs to the public procurement market. So these topics seem to be really core strategic topics for many governments around the globe. One aspect which we notice is that sometimes countries focus too much on implementation tools, on developing green criteria, but without thinking about engaging with the private sector and focusing on professionalization. focusing only on implementation tool may not bring the results. And this is what we see in Poland, where a lot of green criteria have been developed based on the European Union criteria, but only in 2% of tenders these criteria have been used actually. So there is a lot of still work to be done. And we are happy also to share the pillar framework which we develop. It is available on our external website. Please just type Green Public Procurement Overview of Green Public Procurement Policies and Practices, and I will be happy also to share the link to this report. Many thanks.
So you're muted. So can you please?
Thank you, Barbara. Actually, we have exhausted most of the time, and the subject is such that we can go on talking, and we have all of us are quite passionate about it, so it can go on. So probably we have to stop here because the time part is almost exhausted. Payal Madan, would you like to read out the question, or you want me to read out the question for the?
So you can go ahead and taking the questions quickly, sir.
Pardon?
So you can take the questions which are there on the chat box.
Okay, so there is one question that, and probably Rajesh or Piyush can take it. How can an organization promote green procurement from grassroots level? For example, early suppliers.
Okay, maybe I can take that question. So I think, we talked about green procurement and supplier strategy around green procurement. So at Schneider Electric, I think what we have decided is that, of course, we are working with our current suppliers, and our idea is to, work with them to make them 50% carbon reduction by 2025. But at the same time, we keep awarding a lot of new business to new suppliers. So our one of the supplier selection criteria and the business award criteria has now getting emerged is a sustainability score. So every supplier currently we are measuring based on the sustainability score. The score is actually compounded score based on what carbon they emit, and what are their actions. So if the actions are not satisfactory, even if supplier is competitive, there are discussions that we don't award this business to the supplier who's competitive. So, supplier clearly understands, and, all the new suppliers definitely, when they come to supplier panel, definitely they go through a very exhaustive audit in which the labor and health practices, the sustainability practices, the recirculation practices, the packaging practices are audited, and there is a very high score or heavy weightage in the supplier evaluation. So, we are trying to work in both fronts with the current suppliers, having, giving weightage to them in terms of new business awards and introduction of a new supplier panel who are having good sustainable practices. So I think it's I would say on both the fronts currently actions are on, and if suppliers who are not focusing on sustainability over a period of time, maybe I think 2 to 3 years period of time, they will see clearly decline in their business.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you very much for that answer. And probably we are 5:07, so let's close this session. I thank each of the panelists, Liesbeth, Barbara, Rajesh, and Piyush. Thank you so much for your inputs. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.